Welcome to the Light, Camera, Rant Podcast. Your source for the latest on movies, TV shows, and video games. Get ready for ranting, raving, and reviewing. Here is your host, Lee.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Lights, Camera, Rant. I have a very special episode today. We're going to be looking at the missing Spider-Man sequels. So with the success of Spider-Man No Way Home, there's currently, trending on Twitter for both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire to come back for their respective franchises. Because, they did so well, just rejuvenated the interest in them and how, beloved these characters are. But what I want to do for you is I want to turn the clocks back, go all the way back to Tobey Maguire. And there is, on paper, so many sequels, spin-offs with Spider-Man that have been cancelled, from compared to what we've got. So we've got Tobey Maguire, 1, 2, 3. We get The Amazing Spider-Man, 1, 2. And then we have Tom Holland, 1, 2, 3. So that's 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 films. If everything got made that was announced or, in the works, let's bump that up to 11 or 12. Actually, it should be actually been like 12 Spider-Man films currently right now on display. Venom 2, Venom 2. So actually, it should be like 15 or 16 feature films if everything got made that got announced. That's astonishing when you think about it. The fact there was so much left on the cutting room floor of what was meant to be or what was announced and going to be. Yet for some reason it got cancelled or massive multi-universe was getting more popular. So I thought I would turn the clocks back and turn back and shine a light on everything that was meant to happen or was into works. So let's start with Tobey Maguire. So Tobey Maguire, we had Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. What we're meant to get, which was announced by Sony, was we were meant to get a Spider-Man 4. Both the returning cast were meant to come back. Majority of everybody, even J.J. Jameson recently said the fact he was really disappointed the fact that Spider-Man 4 got cancelled because he was really looking forward to coming back to the role, which from a couple of interviews, even from Tobey Maguire himself, is that he was really disappointed the fact it got cancelled. So is Sam Raimi, because he really wanted to make up for what happened in Spider-Man 3, which apparently, to his record, shooting for Spider-Man 3 was intense, a couple of reshoots, a lot of back and forth, which kind of left a sour taste in his mouth, which I can understand that. It's grueling, especially the fact that a third film in a trilogy is meant to be massive and mind-boggling. So, returning the clocks back to 2007, so Spider-Man 3 got released. It had a budget of $350 million. It was one of the most expensive movies ever made at that time. It made $194 million at the box office. So it definitely got its return on that. So critically, which you'll find as we keep going on, this is actually not uncommon. Critically, it didn't pan too well, but money-wise, it made the money. So that's why they announced they're going to make Spider-Man 4, which, Spider-Man 3 came out 2007, definitely 2007. It came out in May 2007. It came out, and then they announced the fact that we were meant to get on the 6th of May 2011 Spider-Man 4 from that movie. Which not only from that is the fact that if you do go and have a look online, there is actually early storyboards and drafts of what the opening scenes were meant to be for Spider-Man 4, because what we were meant to find out is that the villain at the very start, which Spider-Man was going to be taking away into the court or jail, was Mysterio, which was going to be played by Bruce Campbell, which had a cameo in 1, 2, and 3. It was meant to be like that he was watching Spider-Man the whole time. But yeah, he was meant to be the villain in it as well. What we're also meant to be is that Anne Hathaway was going to be Black Cat, and John Malkovich was in early talks to play as the Vulture. Which, to me, that all sounds fantastic to you and I. I was like, all right, yeah, Anne Hathaway is fantastic. John Malkovich would have been a pretty interesting Vulture, especially in the Sam Raimi world. So that, Sony announced that, and they were also looking at Spider-Man 5 and 6. So if all went well, we were technically meant to get Tobey Maguire come back for 6 films. 4 being officially announced, 5 and 6 being under consideration. But apparently, during the process, the fact that it went through the script went through multiple rewrites. Sony felt a little bit uneasy because of the critic reception of Spider-Man 3. However, both Tobey and Sam Raimi did want to come back. So that was 2007. The movie came out and it got announced. Obviously, it got announced the fact that we're going to make it. And then for 2011, then in an interview, Sam Raimi in 2009 said it was still being worked on, so it was still in development. So at that stage, there was no reason to think the fact that it wouldn't come out. But unfortunately, as things Lizard was also meant to be in there as well from Dr. Connors, who was in Spider-Man 2 and 3. He was going to be as well. So, they had the cast going, so the villains were pretty much planned out in that sense. However, as things kept progressing, unfortunately, as it kept progressing in 2009, Sam Raimi said it was still in development. By 2010, in January, Sony announced the fact that Spider-Man 4 was cancelled. Apparently, according to Sam Raimi, there was multiple script changes, nothing he felt satisfied. That would have been a follow-up to Spider-Man 3, as well as the deadline of the release kept coming up, and he didn't believe that even if they nailed the script, the fact that it would be too rough of a shoot, which he already felt with Spider-Man 3. So, in the end, in January 2003, it was announced. 2010, it was saying it was done. There was no more Tobey Maguire, and that was it. That was it. And it's really sad that it did happen, because I would love to see a Spider-Man 4, which is what people are claiming for right now, is that, hashtag make Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi to return. And which we know, the fact Sam Raimi has returned to the superhero genre in Doctor Strange 2. So look, it's not too far-fetched, but I don't see it happening at all, especially due to everyone's age. I would love to see more Tobey, but I don't think I want to see him in Spider-Man 4. I would love to be him maybe Tom Holland with him for a whole time, or his own movie. But which is really sad, because so that got cancelled. But that was announced. That was officially announced that was going to happen. In the end, it was done. So that's one. So that was one officially made, and 2 that were apparently also in the works. And then from that, what we got was a good old. This was Sony's still first thought. Reboot the entire thing. So what we got in the reboot, obviously, as we know, we got The Amazing Spider-Man, which came out on July the 4th, 2012, with Andrew Garfield. And obviously they kept some of the script lyrics, some of the script points, because the fact Lizard was in it, and obviously Black Cat was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But so that got cancelled, and this is what we got next. So we got The Amazing Spider-Man, and it was, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, is that I really liked the Tobey Maguire 1, 2, and 3, especially number 2. I love it. Going back to those movies, it's always good to watch. And William Dafoe is fantastic as the Green Goblin for obvious reasons. But when The Amazing Spider-Man came out, I felt like a little bit of well, you're not my Spider-Man because you're not Tobey. and it was meant to be him. Because I do remember vaguely the fact that I was looking forward to Spider-Man 4 because I remember seeing it got announced, and it just got sad from there. It just got sadder and sadder and sadder for obvious reasons. And I watched The Amazing Spider-Man, and I've actually gone back and I've actually watched Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, but when I first initially watched it, I didn't like it. I didn't like it because, he was like a hip skater boy Spider-Man, and then there was no MJ, it was Gwen, had a new suit, and the fact it was web shooters, it wasn't it wasn't going through his body, so it was a little bit different, and for me, I was probably like, nah, this is not my Spider-Man. I'm not going to watch it. That's how I go now. So this is the first one. So this particular one, so when it was getting made, the director wanted to make sure the fact that it was very different to Tobey Maguire. It was very different to Tobey Maguire's one. So Mark Wade wanted to make sure it was apart, yet it was his own standard. Now, The Amazing Spider-Man is actually one of the highest rated Spider-Man films in the entire list. So it did very well. And going back and me rewatching it, I was like, actually, this actually was a good movie. Kind of weird the fact that his parents are secret spies. It was like, okay, right. But everything else, the love story between Gwen and Spider-Man, that's really good. Some of the Amazing Spider-Man, I will admit, has some of the best Spider-Man shots of him swinging through the city. And the fact, I do feel the fact that with Spider-Man 1 and 2, you definitely get the vibe of he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I would say I felt that more than the original Tobey Maguire ones. Original Tobey Maguire ones at all, because he was still friendly neighborhood, but I got a bigger vibe with Andrew Garfield, which that's just how I felt, and it was really good. And I thought, all right, I have a new appreciation for Andrew Garfield. So that got released in 2012. Boom! Budget of $230 million. It made $758 million at the box office. Spider-Man is a massive brand, so it's going to make the money. That's the guarantee part. That's the guarantee part of it all. So obviously, you made the money. Let's do a number 2. And this is where it gets, unfortunately very sad. So the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So, between when Amazing Spider-Man 2 was about to release, Sony did it again. They announced they're going to be making the Amazing Spider-Man 3. With the thoughts of both Spider-Man 3, 4, 5, and even 6 all on the table. Yep, that's correct. Yep, they're looking at doing this whole 6th thing again. So that's like stories I was wanting to get. So that was the plan, and what Sony was going into with the Amazing Spider-Man was they were going to make it their MCU. They were going to build this massive world with it. So they were going to do 3, 4, 5, and 6. They were going to do a Sinister Six movie. That was also very heavily spoken about. What they were going to make, but the fact that even Andrew Garfield said they announced Spider-Man 3, but that's where the kicker kind of come in. So Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, and I didn't see it at the time at all. It didn't drive me. I didn't care about Andrew Garfield, and I was like, nah, didn't really enjoy the first one. Don't want to go watch the second one at all. So it came. It had a budget of $293 million and it made $709 million at the box office. So a little bit less than the first one, but still made a decent amount of profit. But here's the thing: it suffered the same thing as Spider-Man 3. It made the money, but critics didn't like it. So it's funny how it still happened twice in the Spider-Man universe. The fact that happened. So as a timeline kind of thing, we were meant to get, so Amazing Spider-Man 3 was meant to come out in June of 2016, and we were also meant to get the Sinister Six Part 1 and Part 2 as well. And Spider-Man Amazing Spider-Man 4 was meant to come May 2018 in that kind of timeline. So that's what boggles me. So it had, the fact is, they had all this planned out on paper, but because the Spider-Man 2 had the same thing, and it started going in a little bit iffy. Will they make Amazing Spider-Man 3, and what happens? So a little bit back and forth, but due to the poor reception, they did it again. They went reboot, because originally there was going to be what Sony was trying to do was they wanted Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield to join the MCU because there was meant to be a cameo of Oscorp in the Avengers, but Marvel in the end didn't include it. So eventually they were looking to merge the two universes together, but as we know, that didn't happen at all. So obviously Kevin Feige was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want your shitty universe. Let's make our own without any ties from you and everything we can control. So, and then that got cancelled, it got rebooted, and then we saw Tom Holland in Captain America and Civil War in 2016, and Andrew Garfield was out. And it's sad because he's on the interview was the fact that when he found out that was cancelled, he was really gutted. He was actually really sad because there was so much left on the table to do. There was so much he wanted to do with the character because he's a massive Spider-Man fan. He loves the character, which is why he was so happy to come back and do a No Way Home. But because of that, because the almighty dollar and critics, and looked honestly, Amazing Spider-Man 3 kind of scenario is like, I'm glad they didn't do it because the fact that we got Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and he was lovely in Civil War, and not to mention the fact that we got that big moment Infinity War with him telling Mr. Stark, I don't feel too good, which would have not worked with Andrew Garfield due to the age difference. And that was a big emotional point, and a lot of weight went into that for Infinity War. So we would have got moments like that, but obviously you can always ponder the question, what if? Now, also in 2014, Sony experienced a massive system hack, if anyone does remember, where a whole bunch of emails got released of different things. And this is really weird. So, because I was going through the information, I'm like, what were they trying to do? Or like, what were they trying to think? So, in these emails, like back through execs and all that, so there was one idea that they wanted to bring back Gwen and have her in like a female-led movie where they face against Carnage. Yep, that's correct. Because always the plans, since Spider-Man 3, there was always plans for a Venom movie. So that continued to happen back and forth, which we got Tom Hardy, which is fantastic. I'm glad that still went ahead. Well, originally it wasn't going to be Tom Hardy, but obviously in the end it did. So that Venom was always in the cards and eventually did come into what it was now. But yes, they wanted to bring her back from the dead and have Emma Stone come back. And then there was obviously the talk of Andrew Garfield merging with the MCU, and then there was also talks of let me go back as well. There was also they were going to make a Black Cat movie as well after Amazing Spider-Man 2. So that Amazing Spider-Man 2 was going to give Amazing Spider-Man 3, Black Cat, and the Sinister Six. What? Yes. So trust me, if you're listening to this all for the first time, all about this, it is mind-boggling what the fact they had planned, and you wonder why it failed. They were looking at merging those two universes together. Another idea which is so far out, and like what we're doing. There was even talks, the fact that we're thinking about bringing Tobey and Sam Raimi back to have the Spider-Man versus the Amazing Spider-Man movie, and to do another trilogy and to merge it all together, similar to what we're going No Way Home. But obviously that all failed as well. So let's backtrack. So we were meant to get Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6. We were meant to get Sinister Six, 1 and 2, Black Cat movie. Andrew Garfield meant to be joining the MCU. We're also meant to be getting Emma Stone back as Gwen Stacy and Spider-Gwen, and we're also going to get a Black Cat movie. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, if you go check this out, there is so much of what they had planned for these movies. That's what I said. That's what I mean. Like, there is so much of what was announced, and yes, Sony announced Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man 4. Like, they announced, like, they were like, yeah, we're doing it. And then went like, no, we're cancelled. You know, and that's why people are clamoring for Andrew Garfield to come back from the Amazing Spider-Man 3, which, to me, after rewatching 1 and 2, actually, yeah, I watched number 2 recently for the first time. I thought, well, you know, actually, this wasn't too bad, but I can see why Sony hit the reboot button, which is really sad. But yeah, so I think if they make the Amazing Spider-Man 3, they could do it two ways. They could either call it the Amazing Spider-Man 3, or just call it, the Amazing Spider-Man. And like, it is a sequel to that 1 and 2 and No Way Home, but they're not calling number 3, like they're not calling it a trilogy. It could be like its own movie, still continuation. So to me, I definitely do want to see Andrew Garfield back as Spider-Man. I do feel like his character does need to get justice, and he needs that third film to tie everything up. Don't think we need a Sinister Six movie. Don't think we need a Black Cat movie. That can both be put to rest for that, because you don't really need that at all. But, everything that we were meant to get and it didn't happen is what we got. And I feel like, out of all of them, Andrew Garfield did get the raw deal. If he go in the MCU, he would still be going, we were seeing Amazing Spider-Man 3, 4, and 5. He would still be in the MCU. He would still be our Spider-Man now, and No Way Home would look completely different, and it's just kind of sad, like, what if, which is, a lot of this is what if could have happened, what was meant to happen. Probably out of all these movies, Andrew Garfield, as I said, going to get justice. He should go Amazing Spider-Man 3, but obviously timing and everything had happened. But the one I do kind of wish that did happen, which I really do wish, is Spider-Man 4 with Tobey. I wish they didn't cancel that. I would love to see all these characters return. I would have loved to see what Sam Raimi would have done to Retribution for Spider-Man 3. I would have loved to see what he could, because he's a fantastic director, and you had the returning cast and having that surge of like, we're making this better than the third one, let's go. You never know, it could have been more highly rated than Spider-Man 2. Bit of a stretch, but it could be. So look, guys, that is like the entire history of the what if on the missing Spider-Man sequels. There's a lot. There's like I said, there's like 5 Spider-Man sequels that are missing from the giant timeline if everything went ahead. And look, I really hope the fact Andrew Garfield gets his justice. And if that was Tobey's last appearance, fantastic. It was a gift, and I can't ask for more. But look, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you've enjoyed this history lesson of what if on Sony, because they're, sometimes shit. Or, make the money, be like, nah, people didn't like it. Let's reboot. So they've rebooted Spider-Man twice. And you have Marvel MCU, like, we're not rebooting Tom Holland. He's just going to get a different Spider-Man, like Miles Morales. That's what they're going to do. They're not just going to reboot him unless something happens drastically. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for tuning with this episode. I really hope you got a lot from this. I hope it was interesting for you guys. And look, fingers crossed, hashtag Amazing Spider-Man 3. Let's bring it on. And until next time, guys.
Thanks for listening to Lights, Camera, Rant. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review, and be sure to tell your friends. Until next time, happy ranting.